And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back tonight author Sara Thomas, here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new book, Lost to Dune Road. Sara, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you for having me back. So Lost to Dune Road is very loosely inspired by the Gilgo Beach case out on Long Island. It's my first book set completely on Long Island, where I am from, where I'm speaking to you now from. It is about a former reporter turned private investigator who lost her career, her boyfriend, her livelihood over misidentifying a suspect in a case of a girl who had gone missing from Dune Road in the Hamptons. And then 5 years later, she's working as a private investigator, basically just investigating insurance fraud, because that's the only job available to her. And she's pulled back into the case that destroyed her career when a mother of a college student who is in a coma contacts her, thinking that her daughter's case may have a connection to the case that Lee bungled 5 years ago as a reporter.
Ooh, well, I can't wait to hear all about it. And I have so many questions. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who is joining us. We are broadcasting live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So hi, mystery and thriller loving friends. No matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. It is the right time. It is Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. We are going to make it a little less painful and get your week off to a killer start. So if you've been here with us before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Sara about this book, about the real life case that she loosely based it on, about her writing. She's also a librarian. Ask her about her love of books and how that influences all of the things. Just get the questions going in the comments. I'll get them right over to her. So I will kick off. Sara, for those who don't know, tell us about this Gilgo Beach case.
Yeah, so for those who hadn't heard of it, probably you could not escape it last year when they finally had a break in this case. So I was 21 years old. It was back in 2011 when a girl named Shannon Gilbert went missing from a home in Gilgo Beach, New York, on Long Island. And during the search for her, they didn't find Shannon, but they found the bodies of 4 other women who presumably were murdered by a serial killer, because they were all buried in the same location, and it was clear that they were connected. So for years, the case just stalled. The police, they were either remaining tight-lipped, or at some point they just admitted that they had no idea who did this, that they had like very little evidence. And I think most of us on Long Island just truly believed it would never be solved. Until last year, they announced that they had actually arrested the suspect in the case. And they had, over the years, there had been different police commissioners and different task forces. And finally, they revisited a piece of evidence that led them to a suspect, and they were able to arrest the suspect by getting his DNA and confirming that he had DNA on the victims at Gilgo Beach. And the case always stuck with me the past several years. I mean, there's a lot of unsolved murders and cases that capture my attention. This one was very close to home. I work about 10, 15 minutes from Gilgo Beach at a library, and I'm familiar with the area. But what really got to me about this case was, over the years, the way that the police the police handled the case, and the way that the media talked about the victims, because the victims were all sex workers who had met the murderer on Craigslist and met up at motels either in New York City or on Long Island, and they were brutally murdered. And I remembered when they found the bodies of these women, at first, like, everybody was so scared, like, oh my gosh, there's like a serial killer on Long Island. But then when more started coming out about their backgrounds and the lives that they were living, this high-risk lifestyle, and they had turned to sex work, it wasn't like people didn't care as much, but it felt like people kind of didn't care as much, or they were saying that, oh, there's like, it became a bit more fun for people to talk about the serial killer because there was this detachment from it. It's like, oh, this would never happen to me, or like the people I care about, because of the lifestyle that these women had been leading. So that had always stuck with me over the years and made me wonder if maybe the police weren't dedicating all of the resources they could to finding out who had killed these girls. So I didn't want to set out to write a book like a fictionalized version of the Gilgo case, because this is completely different. The girls involved are not sex workers, like they were living high risk lifestyles. But what I really wanted to get at the root at was how, like, whether it's corruption from law enforcement or people who are very wealthy and are paying off law enforcement, all these things have happened, especially in the Suffolk County Police Department, that there's a fictionalized version of in the book. So I knew that I just wanted to say something about how certain victims are portrayed in media, and kind of like are interrogating the obsession with true crime, and like what it means for the people that are actually victims of it.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that that background. We have Robin joining us from Facebook saying, hello, Sara and Kara. Hi, Robin. So good to see you pop up. Thank you so much for joining us. Kara, so one thing I noticed, so let's talk about the execution of this book. So we open from the viewpoint of Natalie, who's now just going by Lee, the disgraced reporter turned PI. And we're in her perspective for a while. And then we start to hear from Amanda, who is the center of the case that she is investigating. Tell us why you decided to write that as a dual POV, and if one came easier to you than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Amanda is a character in the book who Natalie, or Lee, the main character, she sets out to find what happened to Amanda in the present. And in the past, she was trying to find out what had happened to a girl named Jenna Mackey, who had disappeared from Dune Road. Amanda doesn't disappear, but Amanda winds up in a coma on life support in a hospital after an alleged suicide attempt. And she's also heavily pregnant. And Amanda she was a college student. She didn't tell anybody in her life that she was pregnant, and she was living this double life. And her mother is just obviously distraught, didn't know that her daughter was pregnant, but she truly believes that her daughter would not have hid her pregnancy and attempted suicide. So Amanda's mother reaches out to Lee because Amanda had Lee's information on her. So Lee has never heard from Amanda before, but somehow Amanda was attempting to reach out to Lee. So Amanda's point of view is, since Amanda is in a coma, it takes place before the events of the novel and leading up to how she wound up in the coma. And I decided to include that point of view because I just really love dual point of view mysteries where you get a different perspective on what's happening. But also, like the girls in the book, like Amanda and Jenna, I knew that I didn't want just the perspective of the investigator who's trying to figure out what happened to them. I wanted it to be in their words, explaining like why they made the decisions they did, like how Amanda wound up pregnant and hiding her pregnancy from her family, and why she makes the decisions that she does. I felt like we really needed to see it firsthand. And as for one being easier to write than the other, a lot of the times it really is just easier to write from the voice of your main character. And Lee is definitely the main character of the book, and the Amanda points of view are interstitial throughout. But I really love writing Amanda's point of view. Like from the beginning, she just always seemed very real to me, and I empathized with her in a lot of ways, and I really liked getting into her mind. So those chapters were really fun for me to write.
Ooh. Renee has a follow-up question joining us from Facebook. She says, hello. She says, Kara, did you write one point of view for the entire book first and then the other point of view, or did you write both at the same time? Great question, Renee.
Yeah, that is a really great question. For this book, I wrote very linear, in a very linear manner for this book. So I would write the chapters from Lee's perspective, and then I felt when I was ending off in a spot where I really wanted, like Lee had asked a big question about something that like had happened to Amanda, or why Amanda made a choice that she did. And it felt like a really natural point to just go into Amanda's point of view and show what happened. Then I would go and write Amanda's point of view. So I've written books in the past that had multiple points of view, where I wrote a singular point of view novel, and then in the revision process decided that it needed another point of view. and wrote the other character's point of view later and kind of found places to put it in. But this was different. I knew from the beginning that we needed Amanda's point of view. I didn't know how much she would be in the book. So I did wind up cutting some words from Amanda's point of view. So maybe it was just for brevity's sake. So it was, because this is Lee's story about finding out what happened to Amanda and Jenna, but I did write everything sort of chronologically.
Ooh, Renee, thank you for that craft question. And I enjoyed hearing, thank you for all the hearts and thumbs up on Facebook, you guys. And thank you for that great answer. Kara, Renee is saying that she really enjoys reading more than one POV. Me too, Renee. And actually, I wasn't sure. I didn't know we were going to get a second POV, because at first we were just in Natalie / Lee's POV. And so I was rocking along thinking I was in the PI role, and then when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to hear from her in not only a dual POV but a dual timeline in the past. I was really glad to get the chance to hear from her the firsthand, because I think sometimes in real life and on the page, the victim becomes the entirety of their identity becomes their victimhood, and the single worst moment of their life, which is their death or the harm that befalls them, becomes the only way that we know them. And so I was really excited to get to see Amanda as a photographer and as a, young, thriving 20-year-old college student exploring, New York City from, moving there from Tennessee, and get to know her before she was a victim, when she just was a young, student. Robin saying, especially the last POV in Carter's book, right, Robin? Am I right? Oh my goodness, totally. Melissa is joining us from Australia. She says, hi, Sarah and Kara. Hi, Melissa. So good to have you pop up. Okay, Kara, let's talk about some of this praise that the book has earned. Let's kick off with these words from Ashley Elston, who is the New York Times best-selling author of First Lie Wins. And she has this to say. I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it together. She says, clear your calendars, because once you start reading this, you won't be able to stop. Congratulations on that rave review. And she is not the only one raving. Alex Finlay, who's been on the show several times for his books, also had some wonderful words of praise. Let's take a peek at what Alex said. He says, Lost to Dune Road is a triumph, a twisty and emotional story about second chances and the pursuit of the truth. Kara Thomas takes us on a journey into the darkest corners of the world of privilege, then skillfully guides us toward the light. If you haven't read Kara Thomas yet, what are you waiting for? That is from Alex Finlay. His most recent book is If Something Happens to Me. Congratulations. Let's pause there and talk about, what do you think from a craft perspective creates what Ashley Elston is referring to in terms of something that really sucks you in and can't, doesn't let you put the book down and walk away, and to Alex Finlay's point of words saying both twisty but also emotional, that really has some meat to it. What do you think you've learned about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love both of those authors' work so much for all of the reasons they cited. I think that especially in a mystery, crafting something that you just can't put down, I think for every question you answer for the reader throughout, you have to ask at least two more. You want the reader's mind to constantly, you don't want them to feel frustrated because you're withholding answers and they're just in the dark the whole time. So you have to answer questions for them. But those questions have to open up, those answers need to open up more questions. That just weaves this very tangled web to the point where you hook the reader and they can't stop until the entire puzzle comes together at the end. And in terms of making an emotional story and having emotional stakes, I think you just really have to be invested in what happens to the characters and not just the main character. But for me, just from a craft perspective, I want to create memorable secondary characters, like whether it's somebody like Amanda. I knew I wanted to leave Amanda's fate up in the air throughout the book. So you got really invested in her and her point of view. So you would feel one way or another at the end, with however her story ends. I think just getting the reader completely invested in your characters and not just your main character. That's so important, because a main character is the person guiding you through the story, but there has to be stakes for the other people in the book too.
Thank you for that. Renee saying, yes, yes. She said such great blurbs, and she loved The First Lie Wins. Oh, Renee, thank you for that. I haven't read that one yet, so thank you for that. And they are not the only ones raving. Publishers Weekly saying Thomas keeps her foot on the gas. So again, going back to, that what you're just talking about in terms of, for every, I liked what you said, for every question you answer, you have to ask two more. And maybe that's part of that foot on the gas pedal that they're talking about. But Publishers Weekly saying, while shifting gears between a cast of plausible suspects, a handful of well-earned plot twists, and a serviceable romantic subplot for Natalie, this has all the ingredients to satisfy mystery fans. So I wanted to share that as well. Again, just talking about that multifaceted approach. Now, Kara, you are not just a book writer and a book reader. You are also a facilitator of books for others as a librarian. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I am a librarian as my day job, part-time in adult services. And I was absolutely shocked about how little the job involves books. It's just there's so much that people need when they come into a public library, whether it's older individuals who don't remember their email password, or people that just need help with digital literacy and stuff like that. People just need a lot of help in a lot of different ways, and it makes me feel really good to have helped somebody or made their day a little bit less stressful. And but I mean, a decent part of it is recommending books to people. And one thing that happens in the library is people come in and they're asking for the same 3 books that they've seen on TikTok that have a 100-page waiting list. So a really cool part of my job is being able to recommend them other books, saying like, hey, I know you're disappointed that you can't get that mega best-selling book that like everybody plus your grandma has read and is telling you to read, but here are some books that I think that you would enjoy. And that's a really rewarding part of the job, because when you think about how top heavy the industry is, and how the casual reader that might not be tuning into something like this, they don't know where to get their book recommendations from. So they're just like hearing it off the street or from their friend who only reads like the latest James Patterson books. Like, there's nothing wrong with James Patterson books, but there are other books, and there's so much in the library, and there's so much being published that's great. And being able to help connect readers with books from authors that they never would have heard from if they didn't go into the library that day, I think that's a really special part of the job.
So I am interested to hear that most of the people are coming in looking. So it's not Instagram, it's TikTok. That's what they want.
I'm assuming so, just based on the titles that they're asking me for. Either like the latest book that's blowing up on TikTok, or it's one of the authors that they have been reading for the past like 20, 30 years. So like the Danielle Steeles, the James Patterson, the David Baldacci. And those authors are great because they make enough money to fund the publishing industry so that publishers can take a risk on newer debuts and newer talent. But there's definitely, I think, a disconnect in people who don't, the people who like to read, but they also don't like to do research on their own about books to read. They kind of want it forced upon them. So I'm happy to be that person to force a new book on them.
Renee wants to know, did you read The Secret Lives of Booksellers and Libraries by James Patterson and Matt Eversman? Okay, I haven't even heard of that one either, Renee, but just the title alone, I want to know about these secret lives.
I think it only came out last week or somewhat recently. I did order a copy from the library, and I'm going to have to check it out because I don't know much about The Secret Lives of Booksellers, but I know that The Secret Lives of Librarians is very wild. We have some stories for you about the things that we see. A man the other day came in and told me that his father was Elvis Presley. I was like, okay, I doubt that, but good for you, sir.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I want to know about the secret lives of librarians now. Oh my goodness. Yeah, because I think I'm on the board of my local library, and I think that was one of the things that surprised me about the library is how much more it is than books. I always thought it was just the books, but my
Mhm.
library provides tax services. You need help doing your taxes. There's people there to help you with your taxes, apply for citizenship,
Mhm.
apply for any number of services that you might need, help you use the computer, help you, find
Mhm.
a job. Like, it is incredible the depth and breadth of resources that libraries offer. Libraries are literally treasure troves
Mhm.
of information. Okay, I think Kara should write a book called The Secret Lives of Librarians. I mean, it is a book that that we all want to read. Who else wants to read that? Let's get back to some of this other praise. So Jess Lowry, who is the Edgar nominated author of and of many titles, says she really enjoyed. I'm going to pop this up so we can all read it. I really enjoyed Lost to Dune Road from the very first page until the very last. The voice is snappy, the plot deliciously twisted, the characters complex, and the ending deeply satisfying. Bonus, it has one of the best opening sentences in recent history, and we're all talking about that sentence. So let's hear it, which is Pete Marino took a dump every morning at exactly 10 a.m. That is the line that has Book Talk and also Instagram all a Twitter. So
I am shocked that line made it through multiple rounds of revisions and copy edits, but it was one of those things that I was just like, it would be funny to start a book this way. And I didn't think it would get that far, but everybody thought it was funny too. And I was like, oh, okay.
and that becomes very relevant because she's investigating. Lee is investigating Pete Marino, and she's able to trick him into because he is this creature of habit. So I have to say, Kara, that is a line unlike any other first line I have read. Robin saying, "What a great first line!" She is laughing out loud, and as Publishers Weekly says, she doesn't take her foot off the gas. Y'all, the book is out tomorrow. Kara is coming on today after a long day at the library to give us the inside scoop on her brand new book out tomorrow. The book is not even out yet. So whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, here is the link where you can click and pre-order your copy of Lost to Dune Road and get your mitts on the story of Natalie and Amanda and how their lives intersect. So here's that link, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Jane joining us from Facebook saying, another new author to me. I can't wait to read this book. Thank you so much. It's so good to see your name pop up, Jane. And I always say it, Mystery and Thriller Mavens, my goal is to connect you to your favorite authors and introduce you to your next favorite author. Oop, I'm pointing the wrong way. So here she is. Okay, let's get back to some craft questions. Okay, I'm scrolling back here. So, I saw a good one back here. Okay, Renee would like to know which character was the hardest for you to write? Back to Amanda versus Natalie.
Definitely Natalie, because Amanda, I connected more with Amanda, and even if I wasn't in a similar situation to Amanda, her feelings of like loneliness and anxiety, something that drives Amanda to make the decisions that she makes is that she just feels very isolated going to college in New York City for photography. She thought this was all that she ever wanted. And she's just not happy, and it drives her to make decisions that will ultimately lead to her undoing. And I mean, my first year of college, like I was studying pre-law and I was deeply unhappy. I hated studying history. I was like, why am I doing this? So I could get a law degree and make a ton of money. I knew that I wanted to write. So just being at that crossroads and feeling like the plan that I had laid out for my own future was not working out as I had hoped, I empathized with Amanda a lot. Lee was tougher to write because I mean, I just from a purely logical standpoint, I mean, I had never gone through something as traumatic as Lee. She loses her career because she's essentially canceled because she does, she makes a bad decision in vetting a source. She is lied to, and then she prints something that indirectly leads to the death of a suspect in the case. And I just, it was challenging to kind of get myself into her point of view, because I knew that she would have all these warring emotions, that she would in some ways feel like it wasn't fair. She had been publicly like humiliated and had this downfall in front of everybody who was reading and following along with this case. And like deep down, I knew that Lee felt that like she was right on some level about this man being involved in the case. So balancing like those emotions and trying to really dig into her motivation and this reason she had to revisit this case that she just could not give up on was definitely more challenging to write than Amanda's point of view, because it was just she's not somebody that I really related to a lot.
Right, because you have not had a public downfall after
Luckily,
accidentally, right, after making such a big mistake. Yes, totally, that makes sense. Robin says she met so many debut authors this past weekend. Robin went to attend Left Coast Crime. So last week, this was really fun. We had Robert Degoni, our fellow Thomas and Mercer author, who come back and be interviewed. I think it was his third or fourth time on Mavens. And he shared he was going to Left Coast Crime. Robin said, oh my God, I'm going to Left Coast Crime. So we gave her a Mavens challenge. She had to go get a photo with Bob Degoni, get him to sign it to her. And then she posted it in our Mystery and Thriller Mavens Facebook group. And she's sharing, which she did with aplomb. And then Bob messed it up, but we're going to forgive him. But it was such a fun story. And Robin is now sharing she met some amazing other debuts. That's so cool, Robin. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's see. Oh, Renee was there. Did you come up with the title? Yeah, tell us about the title.
So I did not come up with that title. The working title for this book was called The Call. Because a big plot point in the book, and the reason that Natalie is so like dug into this case and can't let it go, is because the person who is responsible for Jenna Mackey's disappearance has her cell phone and makes a threatening phone call to Natalie from it, basically telling her that they're never going to find Jenna and she may as well give up on the case. And Natalie is like deeply traumatized by this experience, because she knows that this man is probably the one that killed Jenna. And I always just like, I conceived of this book and I thought it was going to be called The Call. And then in the marketing conversations, every author has their dream title, and then it kind of gets like shot down by sales and marketing, who are like, well, that's a little vague. We want something more specific. So it took a lot of different suggestions for us to land on Lost to Dune Road. I think it was like a group decision to get Dune Road into the title somehow. Just because it's such a focal point of the book. It's this landmark that even if you're not like from New York or Long Island, there's chances that you've heard of Dune Road. It's basically like Millionaire's Row in the Hamptons. And after some tweaking and back and forth, my editor suggested Lost to Dune Road, and that was the one that the entire team responded to.
Well, I was not familiar with Dune Road, but I absolutely loved it, because it's just something about Lost to Dune Road that sounds so haunting. And so, there's going to be something really, a big story there. Oh, I love this question. Renee wants to know, how many copies of Lost to Dune Road did your library order? It better be 100.
One of my dearest work friends orders for that section of the library, and she ordered at least 2, I know, which is cool because most people only get 1 copy of their books on the shelf. But she also, she asked me last year when Out of the Ashes, my adult debut, came out, if I was comfortable with her picking it as the title for a book club that she runs with about 15 to 20 people at the library. And I was like, okay, but I kind of don't want them to know it was me. And she, of course, spilled the beans. And now, like, they come in and they're like, "Oh, is the next book coming out?" Or they'll like talk to me about the book, and it's funny. My coworkers are very, very supportive.
I love that. And we actually have 2 people who have this question, and we can fit one last one in, which is they want to know, when do you write? Because you're a librarian. Robin's saying true. When do you have time, or how do you make time to write?
So I was very, very fortunate to be a full-time writer for more than 10 years. And I wrote the bulk of my backlist during that time. I mean, my book that is my YA novel that's coming out in the fall will be my 10th published novel. And most of that was written while I had not even worked at the library yet. Lost to Dune Road and my next book, The Champions, I wrote while working part-time. So, I mean, I had 2 days off a week to write. And I actually found that I was more productive once I had an outside the house job part-time. It's like, instead of just having like the whole week to write and kind of like slacking off because I thought I could make it up the next day, I'm like, okay, I have 2 days this week that I can get my words done. So I had to be a lot more economical with the time that I did have.
Oh, well, what a perfect note to end on. Y'all, the book drops tomorrow. Renee saying, thank you, Kara and Sarah. Thank you, Renee. So the book drops tomorrow. Renee, everybody, Kara is giving us the inside scoop tonight, the night before launch, because we always like to give you the inside scoop the night before it comes out. You heard it here first, a mystery and thriller mavens. So wherever you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube, click and pre-order from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. And the good folks at the bookstore will send it out to you first thing tomorrow morning. Kara Thomas, congratulations. Happy pub day tomorrow. Congratulations on Lost to Dune Road. Thank you for supporting libraries, which are national treasures. And please come back and talk to us when your next book is out.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me again.
All right, y'all, that is a wrap. I'll be back at the top of the hour with New York Times bestselling author Mary Kubica and Sara Paretsky at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I will see you all then.
Thank you.
Thank you.